Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good afternoon to who is joining from China. My name is Alessio Petino. I am the Knowledge Coordinator of the USME Center. And it is my great pleasure today to welcome you to this webinar that we are co-hosting with the China-Britain Business Council, which is one of the implementing partners of the USME Center. Today's webinar is about cosmetics. Obviously, cosmetics is a very important sector in Europe, and at the same time, it's a sector which is going through major changes and reforms in China. And that's why today we are organizing this to explain, to illustrate all these changes. We have two great speakers today, and who will focus on two main aspects, two main parts of the cosmetic sector. The first presentation will focus on the regulatory side, and in particular on the cosmetics supervision and administration regulations, which were released a couple of months ago and entered into force last month. And this is a huge change, which brought huge major changes, in particular in the field of animal testing. And we are going to illustrate all these changes in the first part. Second part will focus on the market side and the market perspective of cosmetics. It will introduce the major categories, but also size of key subsectors within the cosmetic sector, consumer behavior, and also an outlook for the future. I have to inform you that this webinar is being recorded, and then at the end there will be a Q&A. Before giving the floor to the speakers, I would like to spend a few minutes on introducing the USME Center. The USME Center, for those of you who are not familiar with us, is a project funded by the EU, by the European Union. It has been around for 11 years already, and we are in a third phase, which will end next year in March. It is implemented by 5 European Chambers of Commerce and Business Organizations in China, which you can find at the bottom of the slide, and the China-Britain Business Council, CBBC, which is hosting the webinar today, is one of them. We are also part of the European Enterprise Europe Network, and we cooperate with various government agencies, chambers of commerce, and business support organizations, both in Europe and China. We have a physical office in Beijing, which is where I am now. Next slide, please, Serena. Very quickly, we provide 4 types of services. We have a knowledge center under which we publish reports, we write reports, guidelines, also case studies, and you can find all of them on our website. We also have an advice center. Basically, if you have any questions, any specific questions on certain aspects of doing business with China, if you have, for instance, a product stuck at the customs, or you need to know which standards you need to comply with in order to obtain a certification, these are questions that you can ask us, and we will provide an answer free of charge within a couple of working days. We also have a training center, which is basically we do webinars and workshops on like we're doing today on different aspects. Also cross-border e-commerce, we've done a lot. And last but not least, we also have an advocacy platform through which we share updates on policies, regulations, and other relevant updates that happen in China. Next slide, please. Yes, this is, I just mentioned, if you have any questions, we have on our website, we have one function that you will see on the top. It's called Ask the Expert. If you need some advice, for instance, if you are about to cooperate, if you want to cooperate with a certain partner, but you're not sure if this partner is reliable, you can ask for an advice. We can do some background checks in terms of legal existence, but also reliability and credit and so on. Next slide, please. We do a lot of, as I mentioned, events. Maybe a very quick overview of what's happening next. Next week, we're doing another webinar on the dairy sector. Then we will have one on direct sales, how to identify and approach potential business partners like agents, distributors in China. And then we will have another one, which will be an offline and online one in Shanghai, on how to manage risk in China. We have recently completed one report, again with CBBC, together with CBBC, on e-commerce, and it's about to be published on our website. It should be published maybe tomorrow, but we are also going to do our launch event soon in the next weeks. We also participate to trade fairs and exhibition, and in particular, we are organizing an SME pavilion at the China International Industry Fair, which will take place in September this year in Shanghai, and it will focus on clean technologies. Last, we have a self-diagnosis tool, where basically we provide a sort of quiz where we ask you answers, and we test your knowledge of China, and we provide tailored documents, tailored responses to help you understand more other China-related aspects. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mentioned this pavilion, maybe not particularly related to today's topic, but I know there are some participants who are from chambers of commerce. We are recruiting companies to join this pavilion. I mentioned it will be in the clean technology, green technology sector, and we welcome the participation of SMEs who are both in China already, but also those who are not and cannot travel here, but maybe they can send products here, and we can find a way to facilitate their participation. Next slide, very quick, just to give you an idea of what this pavilion will be. So big thing. Next slide, please. Next again. And yeah, before we start, there is a Q&A function. There will be also a Q&A session at the end, but I would encourage all the participants to submit all the questions in due course, not to wait until the Q&A session. Next slide, please. Moving now to the first speaker, we have Heidi He, Miss Heidi He from CAMLINK. CAMLINK is a very famous consultancy that does an amazing job in analyzing policies and regulations and market in many sectors, not only cosmetics actually, but also food and beverage and many others. We have also had the pleasure to cooperate with them already in the past couple of months for another webinar in the food sector. And we are very happy to have you again today. Heidi, in particular, is a cosmetics regulatory analyst. She is very experienced in analyzing cosmetics related regulations in China, and in particular on tracking, analyzing, interpreting the latest changes, not only in China, but also in the broader Asia Pacific. Specific areas of expertise include cosmetics import compliance, pre-market approval procedures, and animal testing. She attends many conferences. She's invited to speak regularly, and also she's regularly interviewed by media. So I would now give the floor to you, Heidi. And thank you again very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. So I can start my presentation now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, let's start. Hello, everyone, and thanks for attending this webinar in time. And I'm Heidi. It's my pleasure to be invited by the CBBC and the EU SME Center to share my views on the CSAR-related regulations. I sincerely hope this webinar would be helpful when you enter into the Chinese markets. And my presentation will be in 3 parts. And firstly, I'll tell you something about the updated cosmetic regulatory framework in China. And I believe all of us know that Chinese government has released and implemented a series of CSAR subsidiary regulations. And secondly, I will specify the key requirements for cosmetic registration and notification, including the process, time required, animal testing exemption, efficacy evaluation, and so on. And after that, I will analyze the challenges and the possible non-compliance in the actual operation, such as the issues that companies may find really difficult and something that may easily fail the NMPA review. Okay, now let's move to the first part, the updated cosmetic regulatory framework. So China has implemented the long-awaited overarching regulation, the Cosmetic Supervision and Administration Regulation. We usually call it CSAR, on January 1st, 2021, formally replacing the previous very outdated 30-year-old regulation. The new CSAR is designed to overhaul the cosmetic regulatory framework, addressing issues revolving around cosmetic pre-market and post-market management in the new situations. And in the past 5 months, Chinese government, NMPA, has released several CSAR subsidiary regulations. This slide shows the updated Chinese cosmetic regulatory framework. As you can see here, this is the Cosmetic Supervision and Administration Regulation, and under which there are three departmental rules. They are the administrative measures on cosmetic registration and notification, and the supervision and administration measures on cosmetic manufacture and operation. And the last one is administrative measures on toothpaste, and among which the administrative measures on cosmetic registration and notification was implemented on May 1st, 2021. And the other two, they are still drafts. And under the departmental rules, there are about 19 regulatory documents and the technical standards. We can see that the regulations related to the cosmetic registration and notification, safety assessment, efficacy evaluation have all come into effect on May 1st. And the document and the testing requirements under the new regulations are more stringent. But we do not need to be too anxious because the Cosmetic Competent Authority in China, the National Medical Products Administration, we usually call it NMPA, also provided certain transitional measures. So I will detail the transitional measures in my next part. Here we come to the second part, the key requirements for cosmetic registration and notification. Firstly, let's see the updated cosmetic definition and classification. So from the definition, we can see that cosmetics are defined from the application method, application site, their use purpose, and the product attributes. So from the definition, we can judge that the oral intake products, mosquito repellent products, mouthwashes, nasal care solutions, and the eye washes, they are not cosmetics in China. Here, I want to specifically clarify the supervision scope of toothpaste and soap. The toothpaste, they doesn't belong to cosmetics, but shall be regulated with reference to the general cosmetics regulations, and will have its own notification regulations. As for the soap, most of them do not belong to cosmetics unless they have the claims related to cosmetics functions, such as the whitening soap, and then they should be regulated as cosmetics. And as for the updated cosmetic categories, cosmetics can be divided into special and general cosmetics under the new regulations. The categories of special cosmetics are 5+1, including the hair dyes, hair perming, freckle removing and whitening, sunscreens, anti-hair loss products, and products with new efficacies. So here you may have a question. So how to define the products with new efficacies? We need to look at the regulation, cosmetic classification rules, and the catalog. Products with new efficacies refer to those with efficacies and application areas not listed in the classification rules and the catalog, as well as cosmetics applicable to the pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and the children cosmetics with efficacies outside the restricted scope stipulated in the classification rules and the catalog. Regarding the general cosmetics, other cosmetics that are not special cosmetics are general cosmetics, like the lotion, the cream, and the shampoo. And NMPA also launches a classification coding system to subdivide all cosmetics according to their efficacy claims, the applied parts, the target users, dosage forms, and usage to facilitate product statistics, supervision, and the determination of product subcategories. The cosmetics classification code is composed of 5 layers of numbers, and each layer is connected by hyphen and represented by a 2-digit number or letters. The company needs to determine the code by themselves according to the classification rules and catalog, and fill in the code when apply for the registration or notification. the competent authority will review the documents in accordance with the classification code. And comparing with the previous special use cosmetics, the hair growth, depilating, breast beauty, slimming, deodorants, those 5 types, they do not belong to special cosmetics anymore. And we can see that from this table, most of them will be managed as general cosmetics or drugs, depending on their mechanism of action. There is also a transitional period for them. If you have registered them successfully in China before January 1st, 2021, you can still export and sell them with the cosmetic registration certificates until the December 31, 2025. And then starting from the 2026, you need to notify or register them according to the new type they belong to. So here are the registration and notification procedures for the imported cosmetics. As you can see from the flowchart, the main procedures for special and general cosmetics are very similar. They both need to do the authorization of a Chinese responsible person. As you may know that for any overseas brands, they need to appoint a Chinese entity to be their responsible person and conduct the registration and notification work. The responsible person, we usually call it RP, it must be a legal entity in Chinese mainland with business license of import and cosmetic sales. It should help launch the product, assist in carrying out adverse reaction monitoring, the product requires, and cooperate with supervision and inspection under the concerned regulatory authorities, and conduct the notified product annual report. But there are some differences in details. For example, the testing period for special cosmetics are much longer because for special cosmetics, they need to conduct the actual testing on human beings. It will take about 5 to 8 months to complete all the testings for special cosmetics. And while for general cosmetics, it will just take 1 to 2 months. So finally, after the dossier submission, the registration of special cosmetics will go through the format and the technical review to get the registration license. But for general cosmetics notification, it is much easier. The notification is deemed to be completed after you submit all the necessary dossiers, which means you could start product import and sales in China, as long as you submit the qualified dossiers online. And the notification information will be regulated by the post-market supervision and inspection. The whole registration time for special cosmetics will take 12 to 16 months, while for general cosmetics will be about 4 to 6 months. And this slide, they shows the dossiers required for the user account and the product registration and notification, among which the resume of the person in charge of quality and safety, the overview of quality management system, the adverse reaction monitoring and evaluation system, the product executive standards, the safety assessment report are newly required for registration and notification. So I will select some noteworthy points in the dossier requirements and explain them in the next several slides. First, let's look at the formula under the new regulations. When we apply for the registration and notification, the formula-related documents are the product formula table, including the ingredient serial number, name, concentration, and purpose of use. Also, the ingredient manufacturer information, ingredient safety information. And compared with the previous regulations, there are two main changes. Firstly, during the notification, not all the ingredients and their concentrations are required to submit. And the other one is the submission of the ingredient safety information. The ingredient safety information should include the ingredient source, specification, production process, the quality control requirements, assessment conclusions, risk substances limitations, requirements in other industries. So we can see the documents required are very complicated. In response to this problem, an NMPA thought of a solution, that is the ingredient submission code. This is a new concept. In the future, the ingredient will have a corresponding ingredient submission code composing of a 5-digit manufacturer digital code, a 6-digit ingredient digital code, and a 3-digit ingredient quality specification digital code. So now you may be wondering, how could I get the code? It is actually your ingredient supplier's job. The submission code will be automatically generated after the ingredient supplier submits all the required documents through the online platform designated by the NMPA. And after the submission, the ingredient submission code will be disclosed together with the ingredient trade name and the manufacturer information. With the submission code, when conducting the product registration and notification, the cosmetic companies can directly fill in the submission code, and the system will associate the product with the ingredient safety information. Thus, the cosmetic product companies can save time for sorting and uploading the ingredients related documents by themselves. And this table lists all the required documents to apply for the ingredient submission code. However, the online platform for the application of submission code is not yet launched, so we still need to wait for a few months. Therefore, the NMPA does not require the submission of ingredient safety information for now. As for the starting time for special cosmetics is after 2022, and for general cosmetics is from 2023. But I recommend the ingredient manufacturers, you can start to sort out the required documents from now and actively apply for the ingredient code after the platform is launched, because the NMPA, they will definitely promote the use of submission code. And the cosmetic finished product companies will prefer to use those ingredients with submission code, because it will help them facilitate their registration and notification process. Okay, this part is about the animal testing exemption. This is really a hotly discussed topic in the last few months. We know that in the past, China required all imported cosmetics to conduct animal testing, which prevented many overseas companies from entering China through general trade. Finally, on May 1st, 2021, China exempted the mandatory animal testing for imported general cosmetics. This is definitely a great news for overseas cruelty-free cosmetic companies, but there are also 3 preconditions. Firstly, your product must be general cosmetics. That means the special cosmetics like the sunscreens, the whitening cosmetics are still required to be animal tested in China. And second, providing a certificate of compliance to the good manufacturing practice, we usually call it GMP certificate, issued by the competent authority of the country of origin. And here I want to clarify one thing, that some companies misunderstand that the China NMPA only accepts the GMP certificate issued by the Chinese government. The actual situation is that the GMP certificate issued by the Chinese government, issued by the local government of their country, also the Cosmetic Association or the third-party organization, they are both accepted for China's NMPA during the cosmetic registration or notification process. But if you want to use the GMP certificate to exempt animal testing in China, then the GMP certificate must be issued by the local government. And the third precondition, the safety assessment results should fully confirm the product safety. Also, there are some exceptions for animal testing exemption. There are 3 cosmetic categories. They are not allowed to be exempt from animal testing. They are the infant and the children cosmetics, and also the cosmetics using the new ingredients during the monitoring period, and the cosmetics whose notifier, the responsible person and manufacturer is listed as a key supervision target by the NMPA. Now, the cruelty-free brands can open the door to general trade and set up the physical stores in China to explore their offline markets. It could create a considerable revenue to for their parent company. But behind this benefit, there will also be more intense competition between the international brands in the Chinese market. Also, for the local Chinese companies, the flood of the more imported brands is bound to have a certain impact to them. And also, as I mentioned before, to exempt the animal testing, the safety assessment is also very important. And it is a newly added mandatory pre-market requirement. Starting from the 2022, cosmetic registrants and notifiers shall conduct cosmetic safety assessment on their own or entrust the professional institutions and submit the assessment report during the registration and notification. The finalized technical guidelines for cosmetic safety assessment refines the requirements for safety assessment and clarifies the content of safety assessment report. The cosmetic product safety assessment should be based on the assessment of all the ingredients and the possible risk substances. If there are chemical or biological interactions between certain ingredients, the risk substances or the potential safety risks arising from the interactions should also be assessed. And you can see that in this table, it lists all the contents necessary for the ingredients as well as the finished product safety assessment report. The requirements stipulated by the technical guidelines are more stringent than before, which will be a huge challenge for the Chinese companies. However, we know that the safety assessment has been used as a common method for European companies. So the requirements in the technical guidelines are very similar to the European requirements. So if your cosmetics has been registered in Europe, I suppose you shall have such similar EU reports. So you may be able to adapt to the China's safety assessment requirements more quickly. And also a good news for you, the NMPA stipulated that before May 1st, 2024, the companies are allowed to submit a simplified version of safety assessment report, which means you do not need to have to conduct the preservative challenge testing, the stability testing, or the pathogen compatibility testing. And the simplified safety assessment report can adopt one of these 4 types of evidence, as you can see in the table, to prove the safety of each ingredient in the formula. The evidences include the limitation in safety and technical standards for cosmetics, and also the safety limits or conclusions published by domestic or the foreign authoritative organizations, and the highest use concentration in the company, and the highest historical use concentration specified in the IECSA 2021. For the ingredients or risk substances unable to use this as evidence, I'm afraid that you need to carry out the safety assessment in accordance with the procedures stipulated in the technical guidelines. Therefore, I recommend the stakeholders can use the ingredients with a history of safety assessment. In addition, whether the foreign safety assessors will be recognized by the China NMPA, the industry insiders revealed that the answer is yes. The prerequisite is that the international safety assessors should meet the qualification requirements, truthfully sign the report, and take the responsibilities. So let's look at the qualification requirements. Their safety assessors, they should have their professional knowledge of cosmetic quality and safety, and have more than 5 years of professional experience, be able to consult and analyze the literature information and the data, and so on. Okay, now we move to the efficacy evaluation part. It is also a new requirement. Previously, the cosmetics in China, they do not need to submit any proof about the efficacy claim, except for sunscreens. But starting from the 2022, cosmetic registrants and the notifiers shall evaluate the cosmetic efficacy claims and upload the evaluation abstracts on the website designated by the NMPA. So you can see 20 kinds of efficacy claims require the evaluation. If your cosmetics have functional claims such as the whitening, the anti-wrinkle, anti-acne, they shall have the sufficient data to support these claims. And also the evaluation basis includes the literature documents and the research data, or the test reports including the human trial, the consumer use test, or the laboratory test. So we can see the detailed requirements in this table. By the way, the evaluation of sunscreen, freckle removing and whitening, the anti-hair loss, and the new efficacy, they shall be done in Chinese institutions and evaluation methods designated by the China NMPA. And for other efficacies, the efficacy evaluation report done by the international institutions or the international testing methods can also be accepted. Of course, the report and the testing methods need to be translated into Chinese. And here we can see the necessary contents and the submission requirements for efficacy evaluation reports and the abstract. Most of the efficacy report can be kept by the companies, but for sunscreens, freckle removing and whitening, and anti-hair loss products, they must submit the human efficacy evaluation reports to the review department. And this part about the cosmetic labeling, whether during the import commodity inspection of the China customs or the cosmetic registration and notification process, the compliance of the label will be reviewed. Currently, there is only a draft regulation, and the labeling regulation is not finalized yet. So what I'm going to talk about is based on the draft labeling regulation. Firstly, let's take a look at the required labeling content. There are a total of 10 items in the information required for the label. Special attention should be paid to the product executive standard number, the 4 ingredients labeling, and the durability. Firstly, about the product executive standard number. It is a new requirement. 2 kinds of executive standard can be labeled on the packaging. Firstly, if you manufacture the product fully according to the China national or the industry standards, then you can just label the national or the industry standards numbers on the labels. But considering some foreign companies, they do not fully follow the Chinese manufacturing standards, the NMPA also allows the companies to label the executive standard number generated by the system. Specifically, when apply for the registration or notification, the company can fill in the executive standard according to their actual situation, such as your production process, the sensory indicators, and things like that. And the executive standard number will be generated by the system. And then we can label the number generated by the system on the packaging. And the second one I want to mention is about the 4 ingredients. The major change is that the ingredients with content less than 0.1% should be labeled separately with other trace ingredients as a guide. And the last one about the labeling of the durability. Currently, we have 2 methods to label the durability, and the new draft labeling regulation adds 1 method. That is the production dates and period after the opening. And for imported cosmetics, the Chinese labels can be directly used or affixed. Okay, about the efficacy claims on the cosmetic labeling. Those products with efficacies that have been tested on humans can mark the efficacy, have been evaluated and validated on the labels. What's more, about the efficacy labeling, I want to give a tip. When we apply for registration and notification, we need to fill in a label sample in the system. So as you can see in the left of the slide. Here are about the product claims. So I suggest that the companies can fill in all the possible claims here, because once the registration is approved or the notification is reviewed, as long as the claims on the actual sales packaging, it does not exceed the information on the labeling samples, they are all compliant and are allowed. And as for the prohibited words, we can refer to the labeling regulation. There are about 13 categories of prohibited claims. I summarized them into 4 kinds. The claims related to the medical efficacies and the misleading information, absolute and exaggerated false descriptions, and those are contrary to Chinese laws, regulations, and public order or good customs. And considering there are a series of regulations will take effect to ensure a smooth transition, the China NMPA has also released several transitional measures. Products registered or notified in different time periods are subject to different requirements. And to help the enterprises better grasp the key time nodes and the registration and notification requirements, I sorted out all the transitional measures and classified cosmetic products into 4 categories based on their registration or notification time. So as you can see, the product A, they refer to the products registered and notified before May 1st, 2021. And also for product B, they refer to the products registered and notified from the May 1st, 2021 to the December 31, 2021. And C refer to those registered or notified from the January 1st, 2022 to the December 31, 2022. And D refers to those registered or notified after the January 2023. And because of the time limit, I will not specify all the transitional measures one by one, so you can read them after you get the PPT slides after the webinar. And what I talked about before were all about cosmetic finished product registration and notification. Next, I will briefly introduce China's new cosmetic ingredient registration and notification system. The definition of a new cosmetic ingredient is a natural or artificial ingredient that is applied in cosmetic products for the first time in China. And before being used to make cosmetics, it must be approved by the China NMPA. To help companies identify whether the ingredient belongs to a new cosmetic ingredient or not, NMPA released an inventory of existing cosmetic ingredients in China. We usually call it IECSC. Generally, an ingredient is deemed as new if not included in IECSC. And if you want to use the ingredients not in line with its usage or concentration requirements in the IECSC, you also need to do the new ingredients application in China. Also, under the new regulations, the NMPA regulates the new ingredients by classification management. To be more specific, the registration process for the high-risk ingredients and the notification for the low-risk ingredients. A 3-year monitoring period will be set for the newly registered and notified ingredients. If there is no safety issues, and those ingredients will be included in the IECSC and STSC after 3-year monitoring period. Otherwise, the certification, the registration and the notification certification will be withdrawn. Also, comparing with the foreign regulations, it is found that the use of anti-hair loss, anti-acne, anti-wrinkle, and anti-dandruff and deodorants, they has higher risk than the low-risk ingredients. So the median risk ingredient is newly set, which also follows the notification process, but the safety data requirements for median risk ingredients are the same as high risk ingredients. And this flowchart illustrates the whole process of new ingredient registration and notification. The left one is for the registration, and the right one is for the notification. So from the flowchart, we can tell that before starting the registration and notification, we need to appoint a responsible person in China, seen as the product registration and notification. Then the RP need to collect all the necessary information and submit them to the online system to get the account. Then we will send the samples to laboratories to do the testing. And after that, we come to the fourth and the fifth step, prepare and submit the necessary dossiers. So things are quite different from this step. For the registration, the documents will first undergo the format review and then the technical review. Once the technical review panel agrees, the ingredient will get its own registration certificate. By that, I mean you can use the ingredient into finished cosmetics. But for the notification, things are much easier. Once the applicant submits all the information through the online system, then you can get the notification certificate. The NMPA will disclose the certain information within 5 working days and then conduct the technical review. And the meanwhile, the applicant could sell your ingredients to other cosmetic companies, but do not forget to do the annual report within 3-year monitoring period. Well, in this slide, it illustrates all the necessary dossiers for opening an account and applying for new cosmetic ingredient registration and notification. If you have the user authority of finished cosmetic product, registrant, notifier, or the RP accounts, you can directly use it. And because of the time limit, the introduction of new cosmetic ingredient will end here. And if you want to know more details about new ingredient application, I recommend you to visit CAMLINK webinar about new ingredient regulation, which details all the documents and the procedure requirements. Okay, now we come to my last part about the challenges and the possible non-compliance. Firstly, I would like to share the implementation status of the new regulations. We know that new regulations for registration and notification have been implemented for more than 1 month. In the first week of May, there was an abnormal login problem of the registration and notification system, and many companies were unable to log in. As a result, many companies cannot apply for registration or notification at the first week of May. And up to now, the system has been able to log in, but it is not yet completely stable. The NMPA is gradually updating and supplementing the document submission modules in the system. So in this part, what I will talk about are the issues that companies may find really difficult in the actual operations, and something that may easily be non-compliant in the NMPA review, mainly in 3 aspects: the GMP certificate used to exempt animal testing, and the cosmetic packaging, as well as the efficacy evaluation. Let's begin with the GMP certificate. As I mentioned before, to exempt the animal testing, the GMP certificate must be issued by the local governments. But for some regions in EU, their GMP certificates are generally issued by associations or the third-party organizations rather than governments, which may be unable to exempt animal testing in China. So in response to this problem, the government in some countries have already taken actions and launched online platforms for local manufacturers to obtain the certificates. The NMPA officials said there is no unified template for the GMP certificates. But if you want to increase the probability of being recognized by NMPA, there are some tips. I suggest you make sure your certificates can reflect the local government's actual supervision of the entire manufacturing process and the quality control system. Also, I received some inquiries about whether the local production licenses can be recognized for animal testing exemption. Well, it depends on whether the local manufacturing standards are equal to or higher than the international GMP standards. And for product manufactured by multiple manufacturers, only if all the manufacturers have obtained the GMP certificates issued by the local governments can the product be exempted from animal testing. Therefore, if foreign brands with multiple manufacturers want to exempt animal testing, you may need to confirm all your manufacturing sites for the products exported to China, whether they have already obtained the recognized GMP certificates. If not, you may need to transfer the manufacturing sites to countries where the GMP certificates have been recognized by the China NMPA. And second one I want to remind is about packaging. During the technical review of the registration and notification, even the original cosmetic packaging of imported cosmetics is also included in the review object. So there are often cases of non-compliance. Here I give an example from the previous non-special use cosmetics review. This product was found that the precautions in the Chinese sticker was inconsistent with the original packaging, and the NMPA ordered the company to make modification. Under the new regulations, it also permits imported cosmetics to label with Chinese stickers. But there, we need to pay attention to the special requirement is that the contents related to product safety and efficacy on the Chinese stickers shall be completely consistent with the contents on the original foreign labels. However, we know that the international standards for cosmetics safety and efficacy claims, they have some differences with Chinese requirements. Some efficacy and safety claims are permitted abroad, but prohibited in China. Take an instance, the organic claims. They are allowed in most foreign countries, but in China, although there is no explicit prohibition, the organic labeling of cosmetics will fail the technical review in the actual operation. So if the foreign labeling is directly translated, it is likely to cause non-compliant problems. Therefore, a number of imported companies may need to provide packaging designed specifically for the Chinese market, which may increase the product operating costs and slow down the product launch cycle. And the last one about the efficacy evaluation. This is something that the industry found really difficult in the actual operation, mainly in three aspects: the relative weak evaluation compatibilities, shortage of talents, long required period and increased cost, and also the inconsistent evaluation standards. The current evaluation compatibilities of the industry, especially those SMEs in China, are relatively weak, and the talents in efficacy evaluation is not enough. Also, the data collection and accumulation is not that easy, so an adaptation period is very necessary. And another issue is that companies generally worry about the long cycle and high price at the efficacy evaluation. The evaluation period can be as long as several months to more than 1 year, which will undoubtedly lengthen the time period for product launch. Moreover, the human trial required for products such as the freckle removing, whitening, and anti-hair loss must be done in the Chinese testing institutions. But currently, there are only 9 testing institutions qualified to do the human trial. So you can imagine that under such a high demand, the testing institutions will face the problem of overdue testing schedules. Companies may need to wait longer for the human trial. And as for the price, we can see from the right table, due to the difference in testing methods and the duration and sampling size, the quotations of different testing institutions are quite different. And the evaluation of some efficacies are very expensive. As a result, the notification cost of a single product has increased dozens of times or even hundreds of times. And moreover, the current industry's efficacy evaluation standards are not uniform. It presents only the efficacy of freckle removing, whitening, anti-hair loss, and sunscreen. They have their clear standards released by the Chinese government. Other efficacies, they do not have uniform evaluation standards. So some testing institutions, they are still very confused about which method is more objective and more effective. And to fix this problem, we may need the accumulation of the evaluation experience and continuous research. Although the companies face so many challenges in efficacy evaluation, from a long-term perspective, the disclosure of efficacy evaluation results will be very useful product promotion method. For companies that valued efficacy, their competitive advantage will be enhanced, and these companies will definitely occupy more market shares. And with the implementation of the new regulations in China, the cosmetics industry will usher in major changes and even reshuffles. It indeed brings more complicated obligations and increased penalties. So non-compliant companies will be gradually eliminated. But at the same time, the transparent regulations also provide smoother channels, streamlined processes, more open market atmosphere, and higher regulatory certainty for entering the Chinese market. I recommend you keep close attention to the regulation updates in China, actively adapt to the trends, and I sincerely wish you could achieve prosperous business in the Chinese market. And if you want to know more CSAR information, you could also follow CAMLINK CSAR featured page, which collects and will update all the CSAR news at the first time. And at last, I'd like to take 1 minute to briefly introduce CAMLINK. We are a regulatory and market information platform developed by our company, Rich24H, and our company is an internationally renowned technological services company. Our services, including the cosmetic product registration and notification, new ingredient application, safety assessment. And if you want to find a responsible person in China, refer to our company, Rich24H. And we CAMLINK, providing our members with insightful and dependable cosmetic, chemical, food, agrochemical, and drug regulatory information in Asia Pacific, especially China. Currently, we have over 50,000 global audiences, including many international well-known companies, SMEs, business associations, and the local chambers of commerce. If you are interested in regulatory and market information in Asia Pacific, feel free to visit CAMLINK. And I think that's all for my presentation today, and hope my webinar today could give you a much clearer picture of the cosmetic regulations in China now. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the question box, and I will pick some to clarify during the Q&A session. And thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Heidi, for the very comprehensive and technical presentation. And there already are quite a few questions in the Q&A, so thank you again. And now let's move on to the second presentation. I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Andrew Atkinson, who is a Senior Marketing Manager at China Skinny. China Skinny is a market research, market strategy, and digital solutions agency based in Shanghai. And they focus on cosmetics, but also on many other sectors, food and beverage, and many, many others. In particular, Andrew within China Skinny has led projects across more than 20 industries and has worked with many, many clients, including big names, also from Europe. He is also a well-regarded speaker. He's frequently quoted by big media outlets for like Forbes, Washington Post, and so on. So thank you very much, Andrew. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and hello everyone, and thank you very much for that comprehensive presentation, Heidi. I think we are running a wee bit behind, so unfortunately this is going to be a fairly truncated session. We've just got about 13 or 14 minutes until the Q&A, and I know there's a lot of questions for the regulatory section. So I imagine this will be I'll just be going through a few of these slides very quickly, or just skipping some altogether. But I think, as you're aware, the session's been recorded, but also you'll have access to these slides. So if there is some slides with some overview, some data that you're worried about missing, don't worry, because these will be sent on to you. So as Alessio indicated, we are a market research agency. So all of this insight is coming from our 10 years in market of constantly running focus groups or consumer surveys or grabbing data online to all manner of different research methodologies. And best to look at this session as a lot more informal than the session that you just had. So this is very much just giving you the next step on your China journey. So to get just a basic understanding of what this market actually looks like, what do consumers look like, what are they doing, what are channels, etc. But again, because it's so short, we have a lot more content on our website, as well as a few kind of data-driven market tracking products, which I'll jump into if I have a few minutes. So we'll just quickly skip through the agenda. But yeah, I wanted to just really kick off just speaking about, all right, the big news, why we're all here, the fact that rabbits are breathing a sigh of relief around the world on the back of that news a couple of months ago. But just to get yourself in the right headspace about dealing with China, that it is an incredibly different market than what you're used to. On one of those data products I mentioned, we run a quarterly survey, a panel of 800 active consumers of imported cosmetics and skincare. And we asked them a number of different trends, on a number of different trends, product, brand, to rank, how important was it to them? Would they be willing to spend more? Would they value this trend in a product that they were going to be purchasing? And as you can see here, cruelty-free and no animal testing came very much to the bottom of the list compared to the likes of natural and organic products, things that are tailored to their skin, etc. And so that's really just to suggest that there is a pocket of consumers who are still very much saying, no, I want animal testing because it is safer for me, but more that there just is a bit of an apathy about the concept. People don't know much about it, they don't really care. It's just not something that's been a part of culture in China. I mean, you look at, only 20 years ago, having a pet in China was frowned upon. So things are moving very quickly, obviously on the back of this announcement. Big foreign brands with big marketing budgets will be, screaming from the hilltops about the value of cruelty-free and why it is a positive attribute. But just to get yourself in the headspace, it is a very different market. And so just pulled out there on the bottom right, also just to show the difference between cities and regions, which is something we really cannot emphasize enough in our work, is to understand these different markets, particularly now that the opportunity in China is to be able to get offline, to be going into general trade. It's not just cross-border platforms where you're just approaching the whole of China. You're able to really target certain areas, which some products, some brands may work well in different areas. And just to really bring that up, look at that one example. So in Shanghai, if we control those respondents, they cared more about cruelty-free, a more sophisticated consumer base, those who are more, have seen a lot more in terms of foreign products and probably engaging with cruelty-free cross-border brands already. So there's just one example. So just 10 more minutes. So really quickly, just a skincare market and beauty market overview. So here's just to suggest that skincare market is much larger, still very robust growth. Even 2020, it still grew 4.1% overall. And again, looking at 2021 with a very strong year. Color cosmetics and beauty, less so. As you can see, it's 73 billion yuan estimated for 2021, as opposed to 300 billion for skincare. But still, very strong growth. Consumers, you're just looking at categories which are great to be involved in going forward in China. Now, this one for me is something I do want to speak about for a few slides because it's very relevant to the opportunity on the back of this regulation change. So e-commerce is the single largest channel. So even though e-commerce now across all China retail, people have different figures, but it roughly ends up around a quarter of all retail is e-commerce in China. But it is more for these categories. So consumers are really engaged in e-commerce. So being able to get on these really innovative general trade e-commerce platforms in China gives you a lot more ability than just launching on a Tmall Global or just selling cross-border. So lots of opportunity there, and consumers are using these platforms. That is steadily growing. But the really exciting one for all of us tracking these categories is these beauty specialists. So that 9% that you see there on the left. So that 9%, that's taking over and is set to grow quite a lot compared to the likes of the department stores, which are more traditional, old-fashioned. They're not very exciting. So what do one of these beauty specialists look like? So these multi-brand retailers, which are starting to really grow in China. You might have heard of The Colorist, Wow Color, Hame, Heat. These domestic-run retailers, which are raising huge sums of money and really doing well, opening hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stores across the country, and have only popped up in the past couple of years. They recognize, that these department stores, the traditional way of buying beauty products offline, that doesn't interest Gen Z consumers. And that's another aspect which, if I had a bit more time, I would talk to in depth. But whereas Gen Z consumers might not be, even at a premium level in other markets, will not really be a core consumer, they are in China. Culturally, could speak forever about why Gen Z consumers do have a lot of disposable income and are spending a lot of money on these premium products. But these stores, you can have a look at them if I just go through a few photos, the likes of, very colorful, very bold, very impactful. And they're really connecting with these consumers in many different ways. One of the more interesting ways to show that balance of e-commerce and offline retail, these stores recognize how important that balance of channel approach is. And so essentially their buyers and their store operators will be changing the layouts of their stores every week, because they'll be tracking data on e-commerce platforms, on e-commerce flagship stores, seeing what's selling well, what people are clicking on, and then they'll be moving products and brands forward to, capture consumers on storefronts, depending on what's popular that week. So it's a very dynamic approach, and that's why it's really exciting for myself and the likes of China Skinny to see, more foreign brands access to market, being able to actually engage with these kind of retailers, and thus getting, the advantage and being able to make a difference by getting connected with some of these retailers, which are growing very quickly. Okay, so that's just another example, Hame. I'll skip through that one. But as you can see there, this one's a really interesting one for me. This is just opened a few months ago in Shanghai. You can see that cage there, We Are All Animals. That's their dedicated section for cruelty-free brands, because they know more and more are going to be coming to the market. So it's really great to see, whereas I referenced that earlier statistic around cruelty-free not really engaging too many consumers at the moment, you can see that if these big domestic retailers are starting to invest in having quite showy marketing plays in offline stores like this, then obviously they're really pushing those communications, and soon, the acceptance of cruelty-free will grow and grow and grow. Now, I did want to speak again because the most hot topic probably in China at the moment is, domestic beauty brands, how they're just going from strength to strength. And it is something to keep an eye on. They're an incredible way to learn, to understand what is connecting with consumers. And you might have heard of Perfect Diary, one of the largest brands domestically in China. And, this is just something I wanted to quickly pull together. Just had a look over the last couple of years, just what immediately stuck out as a few different product launches. And this just shows how active these domestic companies are. I'll reference some data very shortly, which will just show what I mean by this and why it's so important for foreign brands to understand. But instead of just a couple big events, a couple big shopping festivals, a couple big promotions, domestic brands are doing a much, much better job than foreign brands at really building, a consumer base, really keeping top of mind. And as you can see here, there's everything from, core product promotions and development to partnerships and collaboration. Everything from partnering with a famous live streamer's dog to do an eyeshadow palette that is kind of inspired by this dog of a famous person, all the way through to cooperating with big names, the likes of Disney and whatnot. And that really comes through in some of our data. So this is some stuff that we've been, some e-commerce sales from Tmall that we've been pulling every month in these categories from the top 120 selling listings in a number of different subcategories under skincare and cosmetics. And as you can see here, it's pretty clear that the big shopping festival Singles Day on November 11th and the upcoming period, which, because now Singles Day really spreads over 4 weeks, you can see is just where a lot of foreign brands are focusing their energy. So as you can see there, that huge blue spike on the right to see that sales revenue. But yet, when you look at all the other months throughout the year, the red is really accounting for more. A lot of big domestic brands in these categories don't even, they don't really run big Singles Day promotions because they know that they own the whole year, whereas they know that these foreign brands will come in and they'll just do heavy discounting, big promotions to kind of be splashy, and consumers will just wait for that because they know they're not really doing much throughout the marketing throughout the year. They're not building their brands as well as domestic brands are, and so they will, essentially be doing a lot better because they will own 10 months out of the 12. Foreign brands are really focusing on. So that's something to keep in mind is, right, how do I avoid that trap of just getting sucked into targeting big festivals and doing big discounting promotions? How do I actually build my brand and learn from these domestic brands? Because at the end of the day, there is hope. There is, if you look in 2020, saw imports of consumer goods up more than 8%, but cosmetics grew over 30%. There is a really strong inherent quality association with foreign cosmetics and skincare. So yes, domestic brands are killing foreign brands in terms of marketing, in terms of engagement. They know the consumers much better. But there still is this positivity around foreign brands in terms of being able to connect with the actual product, the quality of the product. Okay, that's so we've got about 1 minute. So I'm just going to quickly jump over to our trackers, just because this is something which I really want to jump to. I was going to spend a lot more time. So this is how at China Skinny we have these 2 different trackers. You can reach out to me afterwards if you want to get a bit more insight into them. But they're products which essentially track these whole categories through Tmall, through sales data, to see what's selling well, what brands are selling well, everything through to things like claims. Now, to tie in with what Hedy was talking to, something which I find really interesting is looking at, for an SME, some pretty high costs for testing those efficacy claims. So I would be wanting to know what claims are actually worth it. What are consumers demanding? So here, through actual sales revenue data, we've been pulling out of these e-commerce listings what claims are actually selling well, what's selling at a premium. So as you can see here, something like anti-aging. Anti-aging is clearly selling as a highly demanded aspect, but then you're able to look, right, for anti-aging, what categories are selling really well. So you might see if you're focused on men's cosmetics, men's skincare, it's very much not as much of a concern for men as it is in just general likes of face cream, where it's obviously performing really well, or essential oils. Similarly, fine lines, wrinkles. Again, anti-freckles, you would have seen that whitening claim, Chuban, which was very, very prominent. Everything through to, our consumer survey data, again, seeing which features are people currently consuming and what features do they see themselves consuming in the future. So there's a whole body of data here, which I unfortunately don't have any more time to go through, because I know this is very much the regulatory focused session, and there is Q&A now, and I know there's a number of questions. So I'll pass back to Alessio to lead that. But yeah, as I mentioned before, sorry that it had to be quite a truncated session, but please feel free to drop me a note at andrew@chinaskinny.com if there are any burning questions on the back of what I shared. But pass back.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much for the presentation, and really congratulations for the amazing work you do on tracking and monitoring all this data. I'm sure this will be extremely useful for many international cosmetics brands looking to enter China. There are a few questions. For now, in the Q&A session, maybe I will begin immediately. Hedy, could you please further explain cosmetics with new efficacy claims and some examples? This will be the first question.
To ask this question, may I share my screen?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Here, can you see my screen?
Yes.
This is the English translation of the regulation I mentioned before. That is the classification rules and catalog. So we can see that there are two tables attached by the regulation. And this is two tables. It's about the common cosmetic efficacy claims and also the common cosmetics application sets in China. And those efficacies or application sets not listed in these two tables will be regulated as product with new efficacies. And to give some examples, such as the product with efficacies such as anti-air pollution and anti-blue lights, they will be regulated as new efficacies. And also those cosmetics applicable to the pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and also the children cosmetics, they claim the efficacies outside. Outside this table, they will also be regulated as new efficacies in China. Okay, this is my answer for my first question. Hello.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, thank you. And I would also encourage everybody to submit all the questions, because this is the opportunity for you to submit questions to such high-profile speakers. Moving on to the second question. So according to the CSAR, the responsible person, the Chinese responsible person, has more responsibility. So how can consumers directly contact the responsible questions while claiming and recalling, especially for offline shopping? It is needed to put the address of the Chinese responsible person on the label of the product.
Yes, according to the draft labeling regulations, the address of the Chinese responsible person needs to be labeled on the cosmetics packagings. Yes.
Okay. Another question is, why are products claiming to moisturize the skin considered to be special use? Is there a way around this designation for moisturizers?
Actually, I think the products claiming to have the moisturizing efficacies, they are regulated as general cosmetics, because the special cosmetics, they only include the hair dyes, hair perming, the freckle removing, whitening, sunscreen, anti-hair loss, and the products with new efficacies. And the moisturizing products, they are general cosmetics in China. But yes, the moisturizing products need to do the efficacy evaluation in China. But the efficacy evaluation report do not need to submit to the review department. You can just upload the abstract of the evaluation report to the designated website of NMPA.
Thank you. And maybe I have one question on behalf of a company. How much does it cost? Can you provide a very rough estimation of cost for registering cosmetic new products in China?
So as we know that China has two mechanisms of regulating cosmetics. One is for general cosmetic notification, and the second is the special cosmetics registration. As for the cost of the general cosmetics notification, it's around 9,000 yuan per product. And as for the special cosmetics registration, it depends. It should be analyze the product formula and the product efficacies. So if you really want to know the special cosmetics registration cost, I think you can send me the emails to my email. You can send me emails and about your product information, and I can give you the detailed quotations about the special cosmetics registration in China.
Thank you. So while we give some couple more minutes to people to think about other questions, I would go ahead with another question that I was asked privately. So we know that France was one of the pioneers in establishing this new GMP certificate from local authorities. So do you know what's the status of it? Do you know if so far this initiative has been successful? Do you know if these GMP certificates released by this new agency in France have been approved so far by NMPA according to the new regulation?
So far, there is no actual case of notification case that has successfully exempted from animal testing. But personally speaking, I think that the GMP certificate issued by the France authority could be recognized by an MPA, as long as it is issued by the local government and reflect the actual supervision of their government of their entire manufacturing process and the quality control system.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will go ahead with another question that I have for Andrew, but I would like to encourage the participants to submit questions. Yeah, in the meantime, Andrew, yeah, I already mentioned it to you earlier. So it is our understanding that organic cosmetics, there is no such organic labeling or certification in China for cosmetics, and there are also some restrictions about how you advertise organic, these words. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know. This is what we heard. So if this is the case, what do you think? What would be your advice for European brands, organic brands, to do marketing in China? How can they sell their products here? And also, what is the awareness of Chinese consumers about this organic thing?
Yeah, so I mean, organic has been a tricky one for decades almost. I mean, obviously it's been more relevant in food and beverage for years, because obviously before this regulation, a lot of brands were really active, and organic brands would be more active in kind of cross-border space. And yes, I mean, Hedy would be able to speak a lot more to the actual regulations and the certification around organic for this category. Yeah, I definitely am not an expert in the exact ins and outs for this category. But in our work around, with our clients marketing organic, a lot has been, when there's been question marks or vagaries around actually having the certification to advertise that and market, we've taken it a lot more into kind of grey channel. So, one of the kind of bigger trends in e-commerce and commerce is, and generally across categories, is a lot of direct retailing. So, I mean, if I had just got to that one of those slides on our tracker around consumer purchasing pathways, for skincare and cosmetics, hugely over-index in terms of people purchasing directly off-brand international websites. So obviously there, you're allowed to, that's a great marketing tool as well. You're able to capture consumers right there, and you should be ensuring that you do have some China-facing material there. Similarly as well, there's a lot of Chinese who live in Europe, who travel in Europe, hopefully will be traveling again in Europe. And, when we work with clients a lot, we'll be trying to focus on how to create that kind of C2C direct retailing pathway where we're able to kind of connect with term kind of key opinion consumers and market organic that way. Whereas, that's, very little, restriction and kind of oversight by domestic authorities over, kind of what's being said by consumers in, small group chats or in, on these kind of like little apps or platforms, which someone might have 5,000 followers, those kind of micro influencers. So we do a lot of that work to make sure we're getting that kind of organic message out. But yeah, no, from a registration standpoint, I think we're yet to see in the skincare category ourselves, but yeah, a lot of experience in food and beverage.
Okay, thank you. So I think we are approaching the end of this webinar. So do you have anything else to add to your presentation, Andrew, Hedy? Otherwise, I would just conclude it here. I would say thanks to both, and also for all the participants. You can reach out to us anytime if you have other questions in the future. I mentioned earlier we have this free technical assistance service, but also you can reach to the speakers directly. We just wrote their email address in the chat. You can also reach out to us. We introduce you to the speakers. And that's it. The recording and the slides, the recording of this webinar will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. We also have recordings of previous webinars, including cross-border e-commerce. If you're interested, go to see our YouTube channel. And also the slides will be shared by email. There will be also a link for a short questionnaire about this webinar. We hope you could spend a couple of minutes of your time to fill it in. So thank you very much, Heidi, Andrew, for your great presentations. Thank you to CBBC for co-hosting this webinar together with us, and to all the participants for joining us today. We hope you found this event useful. Thank you and have a great day.
Bye-bye.